But, I want to start out by pointing out how crazy this has all become on the Republican side. This party is melting down, and it is the, frankly, logical and predictable consequence of 40 years of Reaganomics. This is, which basically is libertarian economics with some, deceptive nonsense thrown in like supply side economics, which Stephen Moore and Art Lafler just kind of pulled out of their backsides. And this is the infiltration of libertarian thinking into the Republican Party has been, over the last 35 years, aggressively promoted by a relatively small group of billionaire libertarians. The Kochs are probably the most well-known, but they're not the only ones. And the foundations that support these folks, in some cases, the folks are already dead, and their foundations are still promoting this stuff. And this is a worldview that is leading to some very, very strange stuff. Gary Johnson laid this out, and there's an interesting video going around from the Democratic Coalition against Trump about, if you supported Bernie, you shouldn't be supporting Gary Johnson. And there's one piece of this where he talks about, basically, we should just privatize our prisons. I did that in New Mexico. We should privatize all student loans, no more federal student loans. Just, let people go to your local bank or put it on their credit card, right? Or you can't go to college unless you have a lot of money, something like that. Somehow that's going to solve the problem of tuition. And corporate campaign donations, hey, more and more of that. Here's Gary Johnson.
And I privatized half the state prisons in New Mexico. Apples to apples, oranges to oranges.
If student loans did not exist, I think tuition would be a lot lower.
I have no issue with corporations donating to political candidates.
That's Gary Johnson. And, he can't name Aleppo. Ron Paul won't endorse him. He's opposed to Obamacare. He thinks gun control is a terrible thing. More guns. Do away with the minimum wage. Privatization is always better. So a billionaire by the name of Bill Haslam has apparently taken Gary Johnson's message to heart. Bill Haslam is the governor of Tennessee. He's worth $2 billion. He is, unless Donald Trump is elected president, which I'm somewhat skeptical of, unless Trump is elected president, Bill Haslam is the wealthiest elected person in the United States right now. Darrell Issa doesn't even quite have $1 billion. Bill Haslam has $2 billion. And so he came up with this plan to privatize much of Tennessee, of the workforce of Tennessee. Melanie Barron, Jeffrey Lichtenstein, and the researchers at Portside wrote a piece that goes into Labor Notes number 451, which is rather obscure. I mean, this is basically about the union at the University of Tennessee, which is a right to work for less state. So the union is kind of hanging on by their fingernails as it is. And they discovered this plan. And so let me just share with you a little bit of this. The Alternet reprinted this. And in my opinion, this should be at the top of Alternet, although the story came out 2 days ago. Maybe it was at the top 2 days ago, and I missed it. But it's kind of scrolled off. Louise put it up at the top of HartmannReport.com right now, if you want an easy link to it. The headline is Campus Workers Unmasked Scheme to Privatize All Tennessee Property. And Bill Haslam wants to do this through the procurement office of the state of Tennessee, so he can do it in a way that doesn't involve the legislature, doesn't involve any sort of public agencies that are accountable to the public, doesn't, it's not done in a way where, there's any transparency. And, well, to the article. And he would have gotten away with it, too. And, by the way, he still may. This has not been stopped. It's only been paused. And he would have gotten away with it, too. So this is supposed to happen last summer. if it weren't for a tough campus workers union that discovered his plans and launched a raucous fight. Haslam, with a net worth of $2 billion, is America's richest elected politician. His family owns the Pilot Flying J chain of truck stops. In 2014, he began taking quiet steps to outsource more than 10,000 state workers. Now, when Republicans want to outsource state workers, and one of my brothers is a state worker in Michigan, and I've kind of seen this firsthand because when a Republican took over the governorship in Michigan, they started outsourcing state workers, and my brother ended up a contractor. I think he was making more than he was before, but basically it was, let's get rid of the state workers and replace them with contractors who are in many cases the exact same people. But now there's a contractor or a contractor above them who can skim some money off the top. The plan they cooked up, this is the article, this is by Melanie Barron and Jeffrey Lichtenstein. The plan they cooked up was unprecedented. Management and maintenance of literally every piece of state property would be privatized. Campuses, parks, even armories, costing the jobs of 1 in 5 state workers. Billions in revenue would be funneled to a single private company. The authors write, it's rumored that one of the top contenders is Jones Lang LaSalle, already a state contractor, in a company where Haslam has a record of personal investment. Equally shocking, instead of battling it out in the legislature, Haslam's plan would rely on executive authority. An approach called vested outsourcing meant that the most favored corporations would help write the request for proposals. Last summer, less than 1 year from the date when a private contractor would start work, the plan was still under wraps. And that's when a leader of Tennessee's public higher education union, United Campus Workers, Communication Workers Local 3865, received a tip. As soon as they heard about the privatization scheme last August of 2015, they leaked it to the press and launched a campaign called Tennessee is Not for Sale. Town hall call-in for members attracted hundreds of participants. Days later, 200 workers, students, and community allies lined the main avenue that cuts across the flagship campus in Knoxville. Sympathetic lawmakers did a fact-finding tour visiting campuses in Knoxville and Chattanooga, where they invited workers to speak on panels about the governor's scheme. At every opportunity, members confronted the governor personally and posted the videos on social media. We tracked him down at events where he might have expected a friendly crowd, including a Chamber of Commerce meeting and the opening of a new business institute at UT. Each time our members gleefully rained on his parade, ruining his photo ops and forcing him to flee to his armored car. These months of actions generated a steady drumbeat of embarrassing media coverage for the governor. It all crescendoed on March 8th when 100 union members converged on the Capitol steps with students and allies from environmental, healthcare, and workers' rights groups. Then they occupied a hallway just outside a Senate committee room where outsourced operatives were scheduled to talk, or outsourcing operatives, excuse me. Union members unfurled 3 giant rolls of paper, dozens of feet long, with thousands of petition signatures. So then toward the end here, they write, now it's too late to ram through outsourcing in secret. Haslam is trying to persuade the public that outsourcing isn't so bad. The administration's message to the press is that the private contractor will rehire qualified and productive employees of the state. This is what happened to my brother. The governor is insinuating that the savings will come from cutting those who are unqualified and unproductive, a familiar line when attacking public employees. But so far, workers and the public aren't buying it. Their message, Tennessee is not for sale. The governor's other tactic is to drag out the process, hoping the public will lapse into fatigue and forgetfulness. Now the contract is expected to be signed next February, and implementation could begin as soon as March. So this is still on a roll. This is amazing. And the outsourcing. I mean, this is virtually a religion in the Republican Party, and of course it is a religion called libertarianism. And now Donald Trump is taking on. Paul Ryan is probably one of the leading advocates of this kind of mentality. And now he's got Donald Trump on his bad side. He's tweeting this morning, disloyal Republicans are far more difficult than crooked Hillary. They come at you from all sides. They don't know how to win. I will teach them. Right. And he says, this is Donald Trump tweeting this morning. It's so nice that the shackles have been taken off me, and now I can now fight for America the way I want to. All right. And our very weak and ineffective leader, Paul Ryan, had a bad conference call where his members went wild with his disloyalty. Right. So the other thing I thought was fascinating was, I believe it was last night, it might have been this morning, Donald Trump said, I'm not going to touch Social Security or Medicare, and basically said he's breaking with his party in that regard. It's incredible.